Did the audio stop?
Can you not hear it?
No, we can't hear it.
a good place to worship him. Come on, bless his name. Hallelujah.
So our scripture reading will be done by Sydney Wilson.
The scripture reading will be taken from Proverbs 9, verses 9. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be yet wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning. Thank you for listening to God's holy word.
Amen. Thank you, Sydney. Now we will have opening prayer by Joseph Kennedy. Sorry.
Test. Test. Make sure they
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Please bow your heads and close your eyes for prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for everything you provided. Lord, please help us, protect us, and keep us safe as we go through this pandemic. Please guide us through these next couple of days. Help us to be safe. And Lord, please forgive us for our sins because we're all very sinful. And please help us to learn something from this AY meeting and help it to be beneficial for us in our future. In your name, amen.
Hey everyone, thank you for coming to our AY this evening. I will have the panelists introduce themselves. Starting with Joshua.
All right. Can everyone hear me? All right. So my name is Joshua Kennedy. I went to the University of Windsor and I graduated last year and I got a Bachelor of Applied Science Mechanical Engineering degree. And right now I'm working at a company called de Havilland, used to be called Bombardier, where they basically design airplanes. So that's what I'm doing now.
I guess I'll go next. Can you guys hear me well, or is it too windy? I can move inside. Okay, good. Okay. So my name is Jada Breffo. I go to the Wilfrid Laurier University. I study criminology and I minor in leadership. I'm a part of a Law and Society Association, as I do want to go into law, and I'm basically a social media coordinator for that association. I'm going into my third year, and yep, taking some courses now during the summer. Because of COVID, I just decided to take extra courses because I'd be home. So yeah, that's about it.
Yes, I'll go next. Hi everyone, my name is Arthurine Duhaney. I'm currently doing my master's in criminal justice at the University of Central Florida. I'm going into my second and final year of my program. On campus, I sing in the gospel and cultural choir. And yeah, that's what I'm up to right now.
Hello. Hey, my name is Nathan Bailey. I went to Bremen University and graduated with a bachelor's of science in biology. And right now I'm in my second year of med school, going to American University of Antigua. Yeah. Nice to be here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah. I'm not a university student, but I will be in September. This coming fall, I'll be going to York University for linguistics and language studies.
Awesome. So those are all of our panelists. So our first question is a high school question. The question is, how did you manage your schoolwork with your break time?
Should we still
Well,
go the same order? Oh, sorry. Go.
no, is it the same order or do we just answer?
You can just answer.
Okay. Well, for me, I got people to hold me accountable, such as my parents. So they see that I'm spending too much time on like leisure activities or things that get in the way of my studies. They would say like, okay, like I think you should take a break and like focus on what's more important. I'd also keep a schedule for myself just to stay on track with everything that I had to do. And it's basically just about keeping a balance. And once you get the hang of that, that's something that will stick with you even through high school and going on to post-secondary education as well. And I'm pretty sure the rest of the panelists can attest to that.
Jada, you wanted to answer?
Oh, I was just gonna say, when I was in high school, I remember I had a lot of things to do. Like I was in a lot of clubs and I was in sports too. And even with that, like say I'm talking about like my grade 12 year, for example, that was a lot, but it's honestly nothing compared when you have a good schedule and when you like just put yourself out there and just make yourself as organized as possible, everything is really easy. And if you just remember that, like if you just take everything like one step at a time, you will get through like everything literally. So I think just what helped me was organization and just writing things down, especially on my phone. If anyone has iOS, like Apple, that reminders app, I would always use that to remind myself when to get everything done. And I think just organization and like management in that sense helped me and prepared me for university. So, yeah.
Awesome. Did anyone else want to answer or good? Okay. Our next question is a college and university question. The question is, how do you balance your free time and your studies?
Free time doesn't happen very often in grad school. But I think when you're in college or university, it flips in a sense. It's not necessarily balancing free time, it's making free time within your study schedule. Because the thing is, at least in grad school, I find it's very hard to just keep going and studying all the time and never taking a break. So I have to literally schedule time for myself. Like, okay, it's 7:00. I'm going to take an intentional break for an hour or two or whatever the case may be. And then, I'm going to eat, do whatever I need to do. So it's making sure that one isn't overpowering the other. So you're not just, wasting all of your time and then trying to squeeze your assignments in, but then you're not like only ever doing your assignments and not taking care of yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Like for me personally, what I used was an agenda and where I would write down the important dates of things coming up and then kind of prioritize them and how important they are. And then also put like the really important dates, like exams, put them in my phone because you don't want to miss one of those. But basically just balancing your time, making sure you have time for yourself to relax and not get overwhelmed, because sometimes that can happen in university or college.
Yeah, for me, it's the same thing. For example, at the beginning of every semester, I take like my syllabus that you'll get and I write down, this is like probably the worst part of everything, is because you get everything just at one time, which is nice. It's because you get to plan it out. So I take my syllabus and I just write down all my dates. And for me, because I love free time and I love to be calm at all times, I try to get things done way ahead of time so that when time comes, I don't have so much anxiety around my test time. For example, if I have an assignment due on the 23rd or something, I would make sure I have it finished at least a week before that. So I would always make my due dates ahead of time, like before the actual due date, so that I can have time to edit or have time to just look it over or get feedback. I think that has helped, especially with my grades and everything, especially because I've taken the time to just slow down. Like if you do an assignment like 3 or 2 weeks before, you can take however long you want to take on that assignment. You don't have to crunch it down. You can do 1 hour a day. You could do 30 minutes a day on that assignment until it's like due, I guess. So I think planning ahead and also just knowing yourself and knowing all the things you need to do is very important, especially in the beginning. But don't worry, like I think the hardest time is just the beginning, like the first week or stuff, because you're just overwhelmed with all the work that you know you have to get done. But when you actually write it down, that stress goes away.
Cool. That's actually really great advice. Our next question is a medical school question. How does the grading process work?
Okay, the grading process for med school. I can't really speak to all med schools, but I believe that it probably leans in this direction for most of them. Now, we don't have like assignments on a regular basis. We almost don't have any assignments at all. It basically consists of exams and clinical like practice, in which we have basically a practice session for dealing with patients. Now, the exams themselves, it depends on how many exams you get for the semester. See, now due to this COVID time, what used to be either 2 or 3 exams in some situations got pushed to like 1 or 2 exams instead. And so that means if you don't necessarily do well in the exam, you might have to, if the school allows it, retake the semester. So it's kind of brutal in that sense, but on a regular basis, let's say if there were 2 or 3 exams, you might have one exam that's worth 45%, another exam worth 35% of your grade, and then the clinical like practice closer to what's left, let's say 20 to 15%, something along those lines. But yeah, there's not usually assignments on a regular basis or anything like that, although you may have to do a write-up or 2 for the clinical sessions in the first 1 or 2 years. As for clinicals, which is the final 2 years of med school as opposed to the first 2 years, in clinicals, I'm not sure as of yet since I haven't started that. But I guess we'll find that out eventually.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is a college university question. Actually, it could be an anything question, an all around question for anyone. How do you cope with stress in whether high school, university, or med school?
That's so funny. I feel like for me, it's honestly what I get stressed about. I think the most in school is like, for example, like I said, grades or something like that. But I don't have much stress in the sense of getting things done because I told you already, I'm pretty organized in that sense of planning out. So if I'm stressed about grades, for example, so that's what I'll talk about. If I'm stressed about grades and things, what I do is try to fix the problem by first not stressing, and I just try to think of ways where ways I can improve in something. So I will do as much research as I can, and doing that research kind of helps me lower that stress for my grades or something to do better. But honestly, just taking the time to just step away from whatever you're doing, pray, literally just pray about it, and honestly give it to God, because everything's not easy. Like, not everything won't be easy, and you just have to just take a step back and realize that everyone around you is going through the same thing, and just honestly find things that you really enjoy. And not only that, but in the way you study or whatever you do it in the way you want to do it. Don't do it just like, if you like studying by writing things down in colors and all that stuff, do it in your way. Do everything in a way you find enjoyment. And I think that helps release stress throughout your like school year and things like that. But yeah, just finding ways to just take a step back and also improve in whatever you could be stressed about.
I agree with Jada, like everything that she basically said. For me, when like I would feel overwhelmed, like just when big assignments and tests would come, I would try to give myself breaks and like do things ahead of time. and just make sure I'm not like, like stressing myself to the point where I don't get the job done properly. So I think another thing that worked for me too was like practicing mindfulness and just being aware of my surroundings. Because sometimes I feel like when you're stressed out, you're just in a certain zone where you just tune everything out and you're not aware of what's going on around you. So just to sit back and, calm myself down before I do anything so that I'm completely focused on the task that I'm doing when it gets to that point.
Yeah, there's many ways to cope with stress during university, but the main one that I did was to basically plan everything out. Because if you have multiple assignments, multiple labs, multiple midterms coming up, then what I did, I would just write all the dates down on a big calendar and then just plan them out individually and then set forth time, how much time I need to spend on it, and then when I plan to get it done. And then that would always calm me down, because once everything's planned out, then you just follow the plan, you follow the schedule, and then you should get it done. And then also there's many other things you can do. You can go to the gym, you can work out. When I went to school in Windsor, I lived right by the lakeshore, so I could go for walks down by the water. It was really calm, And sometimes you could just take a minute and pause and just sit on the couch and don't do anything for a few minutes, kind of just relax and breathe. And also you can pray as well. That helps as well.
I just wanted to point out what Joshua was saying. That is so important that you remember that. I feel like in university, sometimes with all the work, we just get stressed out and we just want to complete everything. But you have to literally make a daily routine where there's things to do by yourself. Like when you wake up, just eat, just chill, like do what you want to do. If you want to go to the gym, like I went to the gym. I think I work out more at school than I work out at home. Like I go to the gym every day. Like just remember that you have a life. like school is so important, and school is so important to me, and I make time for it, but I also make time for my health and for myself, and that is so important. Like you have, and that will like reflect in your work. Like if you are happy and if you are taking time for yourself, that will like help you for when you're actually studying. You have the energy because you're not so tired from reading all those books all day. Like you're not so tired from spending too much time. So yeah, I just want to put that out.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, it's so important to spend your time to have your daily de-stress in order to be able to, actually get through everything you need to and really do excellent at the end of the day. But also, I know that just because of the sheer volume of information that we have to deal with in med school, there's definitely times where I realize it is not possible to get through everything that I'm going to need to by the time that the exam ends up coming up, which might be 2 weeks, it might be 1 week. And at those times, rather than just stress and try to rush through everything, it's important sometimes to make decisions to choose the information that is going to be crucial and focus on calmly understanding that to the best of your ability, rather than trying to just skim and rush through everything and then just get a half-hearted understanding of what you need to. And if once you realize that it's okay if you don't necessarily at that point go through everything, but you go through what's important, it'll end up working out better for you when the exam actually hits, due to the fact that the exam is so important. But to make up for that, let's say after the exam, you definitely need to go back and refresh that information just so you're not missing out on everything at the end of the day.
Great, thanks guys. That was really good advice. Our next question is a med school question. How do you know which med schools to apply to?
Okay, that's a good question. Honestly, I guess it depends on a variety of things. For me personally, I initially applied to Canadian med schools. Now, med schools in Canada are extremely competitive, more competitive than the ones in the United States, but you're going to be saving a lot more money, and it'll be nice if you're around home going to a school that's in Canada. Another option that you have, well, you do need higher grades, 100%, than going to med schools in the States, depending on the school that you're going to. As for going to America, if you don't manage to go to a school in Canada, if you choose to go to a school in the States, you might even want to go to a school in the States instead. it is definitely easier to continue your education, to choose what you'd like to do in terms of residency and whatnot, because schools in the States compared to, let's say, schools in the Caribbean are usually more reputable for the most part. At the same time, if things don't necessarily work out with schools in Canada or schools in the States, another option is schools in the Caribbean. But you also might choose the Caribbean in particular if you want a less stressful area to be around while you're actually participating in med school as well. The only issue with Caribbean med schools is it makes it a little bit more difficult to get your choice in terms of clinicals. So like basically practicing, dealing with actual people, and possibly less choice in terms of residency, which is after your 4 years. But the good thing is, if you do extremely well, then regardless, your grades in the final exams will basically, I guess, nullify that. If you do well enough on the step 1 exam, which you take after your 2nd year, or the step 2 exam, which you take after your 4th year, then regardless of what school you go to, you're going to have like a lot of first pick in terms of the either residency or clinicals that you'd want to go to afterwards. So for us living in Canada, I definitely suggest aim for Canadian schools. You need to do extremely well for that to happen, but it's doable. And if not, you do have other options. Even if you don't necessarily make the recommended grade in terms of your MCAT, there's still other options that you can go to if you are dedicated enough to pursuing medicine.
Wow, okay, thank you. Our next question is a high school question. Is it wise to make new friends?
Of course. I mean, if you're in a new environment and you have to get adjusted to your surroundings, then it's probably best that you do, because you don't want to be that one person that doesn't have any friends. Even though, like, it's okay to be introverted, okay to be extroverted, but you don't want to be that one person that at the end of your high school career, or you didn't make any friends, you didn't make any memories, or you didn't have people along with you during that journey that could help you. Because even my friends now, like most of them are new friends. I've learned a lot from them in that process. And it was just because of like being in clubs, interacting with them in classes, and, you know, just relating with them on a certain level whenever, you know, we were going through the same problems or, you know, needed help. So it's definitely wise to make new friends. I think that's just a general like aspect that we should all apply in life.
I think it's also super duper necessary to make friends in university. Like, I kid you not, it'll very much influence the way of your grades, who you decide to be with and be around when you're in university. Because I found this out the hard way in my first and second year. Well, my first year really. I was around friends that were kind of like, yo, whatever grade I get type of thing. You know what I mean? And so I didn't realize that I was subconsciously internalizing that kind of mindset. So I didn't put as much effort into my schoolwork, and that was reflected in my grades. Whereas my second, third, and fourth year, I made different friends. And one friend in particular, she and I, we made it our little tradition to sit at the front of the class, and just having someone to study with and having someone, you know, just to talk to and stuff like that is really, really important, especially if you're studying away from home, because getting homesick is very, very real. So it's really important that you create a support system wherever you are, from friends from church and friends from school.
Yeah, I definitely agree as well, because I remember in university, a lot of people, kind of something like Arthurine was saying, like, whatever I get, but that shouldn't be your mentality, because most programs have a certain amount of average that you need, or else you'll get kicked out of the program. And then you would have wasted that time and you would have wasted that money. But basically, when you're making new friends, you can have different types of friends. You don't always have to hang out with all of them at the same time. But you can have like friends you study with. You can have friends that you'll hang out outside of school with. But you could have different amount of friends. And when I first went to Windsor for school, we went to church the first day. My family was with me that time. And then like this church family kind of adopted me into their family. And then basically all 4 years I was going to their house for lunch, and then I was getting free food all the time. And it kind of became like my family. So it's always good to make new friends and make new church friends as well.
Yeah, I agree too. I think for me, just to point out what Autherine said about having, like, you can get homesick. I didn't get too homesick only because, hold on. Are you coming out? Okay, close the door. Okay. I think for me, like, I went into university with my best friend and we lived together. And so that was a little different because she was like from home, basically, like back in Brampton. So it was a lot easier for me. And I just felt like I was always, like, I felt like nothing changed that much. But I think it's so important that you also make friends at university. And like Autherine said, that you have to have friends who are encouraging and want similar goals. Because honestly, me and my best friend, like, we're very strict when it comes to like getting things done, and we both have that mindset. And in doing so, we were able to enjoy our time, but also get serious and done with things when we needed to get done with. And we were both encouraging each other. Like, if I saw her on the couch just sitting down, like, don't you have to study or something? Like, I was always encouraging and pushing her to do better and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. Our next question is, how do you know if you're ready to apply to med school?
Okay, well, that's a tough question. Well, I guess it's important to do your research to understand, I guess, what med school is like. It's also important to know the reasons why you want to pursue medicine in the first place. If you're doing it for the money, it's not necessarily the best reason, but a decent amount of people do it, and driven people are able to accomplish it. But it's not necessarily going to work for you if you're not a person that is very, very disciplined. And if you're not perfectly disciplined, I know that we all have our struggles, but at least in the process of improving your discipline over time, using whatever resources that it takes in order to learn how to become more disciplined to be able to accomplish it. Because with medicine, it's really dedicating the next 4 years of your life. Even the breaks, let's say there's a month break or a month and a half break, you're going to be using that time either to do extra studying or to do some volunteering in order to increase your odds of being able to do the specific field of medicine that you want to be in order to kind of have an edge over everybody else, because it is extremely competitive. So it's important to know the reason why you want to do it. And it's important to understand what going through it is going to be like before you make a decision to spend all that money in order to work towards being a physician.
Very good advice. Our next question is, what clubs are most beneficial in high school?
Well, I would say any club that fits your interests, honestly, and as long as you stay dedicated to that, or if you go outside of your comfort zone and try a new club. Like for me, it was flag football. Like before that, I thought I couldn't play sports at all, but that showed me different. So I guess trying different clubs, seeing where your interest lies. I know that there are like major clubs in schools that usually, students draw towards, like the Student Activity Council. That's a pretty big club at school, but limited spots only. And you would engage basically with student life. So that's really one you can get active in. It looks good on your resume. There's also Model United Nations, which is like a debate club that gives you experience. You can travel to different places if you go that far in the club and become an executive member. There's also a club called DECA. It's a business club, and like Model United Nations, you get to travel and go to competitions. Like, it's a big thing. I was also a part of this club, women's empowerment club. It was called Zonta, and basically we just arranged events for women's empowerment at our school. But yeah, just find a club that matches your interests and dedicate yourself to that, and try to balance your academics with that, and you'll be good.
Great. Thanks, Hannah. Our next question is, what was your experience with balancing what was your experience with balancing extracurriculars and academics, and what did you participate in? This is for college, university.
Okay, my advice for any Adventist student going to a public school, join a campus ministry. If there is one, join it. Because ACF stands for Adventist Christian Fellowship, which is a campus ministry for Adventist students on public campuses. And a lot of times, depending on the city your school is in, you may not necessarily vibe with the church that you're at. It may not be comfortable, whatever the case may be. You may not be able to get there transportation wise every week. But if there's a campus ministry on your campus, I would suggest joining it. Even if, it may be from a Sunday church or whatever the case may be, just the fellowship alone is really, really beneficial to your experience, because that's something to definitely look forward to. So in undergrad, I was a part of a Sunday church campus ministry until ACF began on my campus. And I was the president of the first year of ACF at UOttawa, which was a lot of fun. And then, as I mentioned before, since coming to Florida, I joined the gospel choir on campus, because that's the only thing I can really do in between my studies. But I really enjoy it because you get to meet people outside of your bubble, outside of your comfort zone. Because you don't want to just have Adventist friends who look just like you. You know what I mean? You want to have Adventist friends who don't like you. Look like you, I should say. You want to have friends who don't look like you, may not believe in the same things, kind of expand your horizon and your networks, because you never really know where these connections are going to lead you down the road. So my experience so far has been really good. It's a little hard to balance academics with extracurriculars, because with singing with the choir, we rehearsed, pre-COVID, we rehearsed twice a week. And then, especially during Black History Month, because we're the only Black choir on the campus, we were singing every week. So it's you have to prioritize, okay, there's some events you can go to, some events you can't go to, because, your studies shouldn't be suffering because you want to have fun. You know what I mean? You have to find a way to, give room and give space to all of them. Yeah.
For me, I'll just start from high school and then university. So in high school, I was in a lot of extracurricular, especially in grade 12. I played probably 4 sports, and then I also was a part of little councils. I was in mock trials and things like that. And honestly, that was from a build up from doing a lot of things from grade 9, 10, starting slow. And I think that has helped me a lot for university, in the fact that you actually can organize yourself to do a lot of things at one time, but it's just also who you are. If you spend more time if you need more time to study for something, maybe a lot of extracurriculars won't be the best for you, because this is just how you study. You need more time when you need to do things. But I think it's important to try new things, and I think it's important to actually go out there, because it will teach you a lot. It teaches you about inclusion, it teaches you about determination and integrity. You learn so many things that you can actually put into your studies. And so when I went to university, my first year, I was playing soccer, and while I was playing soccer, I had practices about 3 times a week. It kind of worked to my schedule, because what they do is they make it fit into your schedule, and so they try at least. And so I would have 2 practices at 5 a.m., which means you have to go to bed early. So I had practices at 5 a.m. for 2 hours, and then I got to go home, do whatever, do my studying, go to class, and plus the extra time you have to put aside to study. I remember what I did was on Sundays, I would always use that time to do all my readings, and that's a lot because you could have like 50 pages for like one class, but I would use that time to do all my readings so that during the week I can just like go to class and then do my extracurricular and study if I need to. That's just like a tip that I would do. And Sabbath, I would rest. I need to chill and rest. Don't forget about that. And I think that kind of helped. Like I realized, and I was scared, honestly, my first year. I was just like, how am I going to do like practice 3 times a week, plus all of this like reading, plus all this, plus I have to go to class, plus I have to study. So it honestly taught me how to organize my time. I think it was really nice. And to go off of what Autherine was saying, it's important to find groups, like good Christian groups. I found some, at least in my second year. I didn't find any in my first, but in my second year, I found a Christian club and we met twice a week. And in that club, and there was a professor who was also in it, which was really nice. Also, by being in that club, I was able to meet some girls where they also had like a little girls Christian club. So on Mondays, I was also having like fellowship with them too. And honestly, it just brought, going back to what we were talking about before of having some time away from school, that is so important. And I felt like, I don't know, I just felt like being able to be in different clubs and stuff kind of helps. I don't know, it just relieves some stress, and it's just nice being in different clubs and groups as you get to explore. And you realize that you do want personal time to yourself, but spending a lot of time with other people is nice too. And you learn a lot of things about yourself and others. And so yeah, I think extracurricular is really important, and it's good on your resume, so do that. But yeah, definitely go out there and don't like, everything will be a challenge, but you will be able to do it if you just put your mind to it.
Yeah, when I initially started med school, I didn't know if I'd be able to do that many extracurriculars myself because I was, I guess, worried that I wouldn't have enough time. But honestly, it's definitely doable. Like on a daily basis, I managed to be able to go to the gym, and I joined a couple clubs myself. Like Arthurine was saying, like a Christian group. I managed to join Doctors for Christ, and with them, I was playing bass for them, and they met up like once a week or so, like every Wednesday, which is a different day, but it worked out for most of the students. And apart from that, they also had a capoeira class, so I got to learn something completely new, which is it's a type of martial arts class that was definitely enjoyable, because it's always important to learn, to give yourself the opportunity not just to grow in your educational life, but to grow in different areas of your life as well. And you can do that when you try out different things. And if you organize your time well, whatever you're doing, you should be able to find time to dedicate just to extracurricular activities. And definitely doing other things apart from just studying is so helpful when you're looking to make that next step and to say the things that you're involved in. Because for some reason, whether it's hospitals or whoever's going to get you to that next step, they like to know that you're not just stuck, I guess, one track minded, or you're able to do multiple things and keep a well-balanced lifestyle. So, yeah.
And just to add on to what Nathan said, it's also really important. That's one regret I have from undergrad, was not joining whatever society was for my major, joining the criminology students association that we had. So my recommendation would also be to find whatever a society or association is in your department. And even if you're not extremely active in it, still get active with some kind of a student association on campus, because once again, there are a lot of opportunities, a lot of jobs, a lot of internships, a lot of networking possibilities that are offered within that group, within that clique, which is also really beneficial. And like, if you can't join a sports team because maybe your team competes on the Sabbath, there's also intramurals as well, which is, recreational as well.
I agree with Autherine. I just in my third year am joining an association, and even now just joining, I already found some like good outlets for like future things and future job opportunities, and I met with some mentors and things like that. So I think it's really important that you get out there, especially in your job rhythm or whatever.
That's some really good advice, guys. And some of you guys took like some really cool extracurriculars. It's really good. The next question is a med school question. Should you take a gap year between your undergrad and med school?
Okay, that's a good question. A gap year is not for everyone necessarily. I personally recommend it. I know that I took a gap year, but interestingly enough, the gap year that I took wasn't purposeful after university, but it was actually in the middle of my university experience. I'm not recommending that to everyone, just in case some parents won't necessarily be happy about that. But yeah, I think it's important because sometimes there comes a point in time where you're not exactly certain if this is exactly the direction you're looking for. And I feel like a gap year is really good to allow you to do some volunteering, to ask questions, to get yourself out there in the field that you want to possibly pursue. It kind of secures your decision rather than going extremely far in it and deciding, maybe this isn't for me after you've dedicated all that time, that effort, and that money into doing it. So yeah, if you do decide to do a gap year, I definitely recommend volunteering if you get that opportunity, whether it be in a hospital, whether it be in a clinic, just something to get you in the field, just so that you know for sure that that's what you want to do, while at the same time spending time studying for the MCAT, which would most likely be necessary for most of the schools that you would be applying to if you do decide that that's what you want to do, just so that that year isn't not wasted, but so that you're using the most out of that year to get the best benefits.
Great. Thank you. The next question is for anyone. Was high school representative of what you experienced in university?
Absolutely not. No, not at all, because high school was from 8:30 to 3:02. Bramley Secondary School did not play games with my life. And then after that, so you have a structured lunch, you have a structured breakfast, which is before school, you know what I mean? It's the same thing Monday through Friday, and then whatever extracurriculars you have in the afternoon. University, Mondays, your first class is at 11:30. Tuesdays, you have 3 back-to-back classes. Wednesday, you have a 3-hour lecture. Thursday, you have your day off. Friday, you end at 12:30, whatever the case may be. So it's definitely not the same time management wise, because nobody's really telling you what to do. It now becomes you need to tell yourself things need to get done. You know what I mean? It's like your professors, it's not high school, they tell you along the way when your assignments are going to come. So they'll be like, okay, guys, next week we're going to talk about, I'm going to assign you this and it's going to be due blah, 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 blah. Whereas in university, on day one, you know when those dates are. So they're giving you the opportunity to make a decision like, okay, hey, I know my assignment is due on September 27th. Am I going to be foolish and get started on the assignment on the night of the 26th? Or am I going to understand what is going into this assignment and get it done beforehand? So there's a lot of responsibility you have to take. And when your high school teachers say that, like, your university professors don't really care, they're not kidding. You may have one professor out of the whole school year who may ask you, hey, is everything okay? Depending on your class size. Do you need an extension, whatever the case may be? But for the most part, if you miss that deadline, you miss that deadline. And even if they let you hand in the assignment, they're still docking marks off of it. So like, you have to really determine in your mind that you're going to stay diligent and committed to finishing your semester strong and just being organized overall, because it is I wish I still could wake up and just do school for 6 hours every day and be done with it, rather than the 36 hours of brain work I have to commit to a week.
For me, I think like how my teachers made up university and everything, they made it seem like it was the scariest thing ever or whatever. And honestly, from my personal experience, I do agree that it is hard. it's harder. But in a way, it's kind of easy because you're doing what you like. And, you know, in like high school, you're doing like all these different subjects, but where you get to university, it's just like you're doing something that you love. Well, you may not love it, but something that you're interested in. And also, even though you might have like electives and all this stuff that you end up not doing as well as your major, it's not too hard in the sense that if you put your dedication into it and if you put your work into it, everything will be okay. I agree and disagree with the fact that the teachers don't care. I do think that, I mean, like in the sense where if you hand in your assignment late, they're not going to say, oh, sorry, like they don't, like that's what they mean. But I do have profs who you can email. Well, it depends what campus you're going to. Actually, I shouldn't say that because if the class is like 500 students, then they might not read your email. Some profs won't even give it to you. But if, say, you have a class of 200, 230, they will probably want you to email them to ask them questions about certain things or certain assignments. I know a lot of my friends have good I have good relationships with some profs. I think that's very important, as you can do very well if you have like a good connection with at least one prof throughout your whole university career. They will definitely give you points and tips about a lot of things. Even when they're reading your essays, they will come back to you and be like, okay, this is how you can improve this, and I want you to do well. Like I had a prof who literally emailed me, then called me to try to help me with an essay. They're like, you're a really good writer. I want you to do better, and I want you to succeed, because they know I'm going into law, and they're saying, if you want to go into law, you have to you're good, but you need to be up here. So there's teachers, there's profs that are out there that do want the best for you, but you also have to make the effort to go to them, to talk to them, to try to do better, because they have their office hours, they have all these things. Use that to your advantage, because it's not like being in high school where you can just put your hand up, go to the back of the class and go to their office and stuff like that. So you have to make the time you have to make the time to make it the best time for yourself, kind of thing. Like you have to put yourself out there, and you can sometimes the lineups after class, there's a whole lineup to just speak to the prof, just to talk to them, because people are just going up there to just say hi, how are you? Like people want to make connections so like easily, but I think it's not as bad as how my teachers have made the image of university at all. I think honestly, from my personal experience, I love university a lot more than high school. I just like it a lot more. But yeah, I think university is just so fun. It's so nice, and you meet so many new people. And yeah, university is a good time.
Yeah, I agree with some of the stuff you guys are saying, but to me personally, university is much different than high school in a way that high school was you just go, you visit there, you're there for that many hours, and then you go home and you kind of forget about it. But university, it's almost like not 24/7, maybe 24/6 because of Sabbath, but you're mostly involved in it all the time. Like you live on campus sometimes, or you live walking distance from campus. Like it's always on your mind. And when you have assignments and there's a due date coming, the professors won't really remind you. While in high school, they would always remind you and say, remember, this is coming up, be ready, get it done. And sometimes they'll even show you examples. But professors, they put the date in the syllabus, and some of them do not remind you. And it just happens, and then you get a 0. But that's just something you gotta focus on yourself and make sure you have the dates right and that you get it done, because at the end of the day, you're gonna be wasting a lot of time and money, and you wouldn't want to do that.
That is so true, man. So true. Like they don't really give you any serious warnings about things that are coming up. Yeah, you receive an email, but if you're not opening those emails, it's just a wrap for you. If you miss one exam in med school, just go home, just pack your bags, it's over. It's just completely over. It's because it's worth so much that you can't afford to make a mistake, get a date wrong, anything like that. That has to be permanent marked right in your calendar, just so that you have everything down. You have to have those dates under control.
And I think grade 12, like, you know, I remember some of my high school teachers, they were very saying, like, we're not saying that university is going to be hell, but it's going to be different. You know what I mean? They really emphasized on it going to be different. And something that Joshua and Nathan kind of touched on, like, it is imperative that you have a calendar, not just one in your phone. I wish I could show you the one that's right in front of my face, but an actual big calendar that you hang in your room, and every month put your assignments on there and stuff like that. Because the onus now is put on you, because your mom's not going to ask you, oh, how was school today? You know what I mean? You know, you're going to have to remember that you need to eat. You're going to have to remember that you need to complete whatever tasks. Because once again, you're not going to the structured 6 hour a day. Your lunch is 75 minutes long, whatever. Like, you have to make it your business to make sure that you're keeping up with stuff. And then if you're working on top of being in university, that's another thing, because then you're fitting in your work schedule plus your studies plus your class time. And then if you're crazy and have extracurriculars on top of all of that, that's even more stuff to think about. So it's not necessarily, it's not impossible. It's just, you have to be very disciplined and you have to surround yourself by the right stuff. And it's really, really important to, like, create good habits from the jump. So if you know, kind of like Jada was saying before, if you know that you need a lot of time to study, don't join 6 extracurriculars. Start with 1, you know what I mean? And see how you can handle and balance the 1. You know, if you're finding that you can't really study in noise, or you can't study at home, then allocate time to study at the library 2 to 3 hours after your class, or get your notes done so that when you go home, you don't have to do those things. Because it's really not the same. And it's a wake-up call, and a very abrupt wake-up call for a lot of students in their first year.
That's why I think it's so important. That's what I was saying again for any high school students in this Zoom, that for me, doing those extracurriculars from the jump or in high school not saying that you have to do it in university, but it taught me discipline of how to organize myself. So that's what I was saying. When I got to university, it was a lot easier because I already felt the pressure of having so many things to do. And it's like, you have to do it yourself. The onus, everything's on you. Everything's on yourself. Like, you make your own schedule. Though you have a class, like the class time, say your class is 2 hours or an hour and a half. The other 6 hours is for you to study and for you to do all that stuff. So you may have 5 courses, a 5-course load, for example. You have to make that time to say, okay, what days am I going to study for this class? Or maybe the class is not that hard, so you don't have to put so much time into it, but you need to put time into another class. So you have to, like, know how to set that time. And like, for example, I was working this year in my second year, and again, I decided not to do soccer because I'm like, I won't have any time to sleep. I won't have any time to sleep if I'm waking up at 5 a.m., but then have work in the morning and then have to go to class and study. So I decided not to do soccer. So I decided to just get a job. And so you just need to know how to balance all those things out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys touched literally like a good chunk of it. And I totally agree with all you guys are saying. Even like a big difference is also like how much percentage things are worth, even with like classes. So like in university, like I had like 2 exams and it's like 50% each. Like if you mess up on one, you're screwed. Versus like if you're in high school, like you'll have multiple assignments. If you like mess up on one test, you can always like work it up to, get your grade to a better grade.
Maybe I can pull up a syllabus for you actually right now. I'm doing a course. Can I share a screen or something?
Yeah.
Okay. This is for, okay, yeah. This is, I don't like the syllabus, but I'll share it. How do I do this? Oh, I press share screen?
Yeah, just
then
go to share screen and select the screen that you want to share.
Okay. If you see anything crazy, I'm sorry, but I don't know. Okay. Okay, this is it. Okay, can you see it? Oh wait. Can you see it?
It's loading, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is for a course about mental health and justice that I'm taking right now. Let me hide this sidebar. Okay, so you would see I don't like this. There's more detailed syllabus and there's more, or syllabus or whatever, and there's more, this is not too detailed. It's 10 pages, but it's not too detailed. But still, you would get your like prop, your instructor's name and email, whatever, a description of the calendar and prerequisites, the learning outcomes for the course. You get all the references and your course textbook. So this is probably the most important thing that you need, because you need to know like what textbook you need for the course, and also additional references to your readings that will probably be in your lesson notes. So yeah, okay. So let me go down. Okay. So here is where they will show you the student evaluation. So this is for an online course, so it's not too bad. But say we have critical reflections, and we had to do about, you had to do one for week 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. And so you had to just do a critical reflection. And if you go down, they explain what that reflection is about, right? But if you go down deeper, they show you a whole rubric for what that like assignment is about. So usually you'll get the percentage and know like, for example, you'll know the weight of that particular assignment, and then you will get a description, and then you may also get a rubric for how you can complete it in the like best way possible. And so see, look, like this exam is not too bad, it's only 25%, you know, but some classes you may get 50%, right? Because some profs are just lazy, they don't want to do too much, they don't want to mark papers, so they will just give you an exam. And so this one is a lot easier because everything's broken down, and you have a chance to revive yourself if you got any like bad marks, for example. But yeah, this is just, they gave me a week schedule also because it's online. It's a little more detailed. So they gave us like a week schedule for each week, and the readings, like I showed you on the side earlier, they gave you readings right here, the additional readings. So yes, you have to read your textbook, and yes, you have to read the lesson, and yes, you have to read the additional readings too. But sometimes you don't have to read if you don't want to, but I suggest you read your textbook. I think it's important. And they always give you like supports, like food banks. My school gives free food a lot. It gives out free food, so that's important. So yeah, that's just how it would look. They're very long. This one's 13 pages. But yeah, so in the beginning of the year, like I said, I would just go to I would go here basically and go on my calendar and write everything out. So yeah.
I'm also like too, kind of adding on to what Jada said. The University of Toronto, Scarborough campus, they have an assignment calculator where you can like plan out your assignments and let's say like basically give you a proper structure of when you would get, let's say, like your rough draft done, show it to your teacher, get it peer edited, and then finish the final draft. So I think that would be a good resource. If I find the link, I can put it in the chat.
Yeah, talking back about exam, for me, I know that some classes, the final exams are worth 50%, and the midterm exams are worth 45. So you have to be really aware of how much they are and make sure you put enough time in it, because if you don't do well on one of them, then it'll drastically change your mark. And I remember one friend, he missed the midterm exam, which is worth 45%. So it got pushed to the end of the exam. So his final exam was worth 95%, and then the other 5% was assignments. So you really got to be careful, and you really got to be ready to make sure you have your dates correct.
And even if a percentage is lower, say it's only worth 10%, like don't take that for granted. Get all of your percentages is that you need. You know what I mean? Like people will be like, oh, 10%, that's soft. And then you get a 2 out of 10. Do you know what that will do to your mark?
That will improve your mark. That 10% will do.
Listen, it'll do some miraculous things if you're smart with it. Even because like, okay, so this was something I had, very realistic example. So like I told you guys, I sing in a choir, And with one class that I had this past semester, I had weekly quizzes, right? And so Arthurine thought she did her quizzes for spring because we were going to Disney. So she missed 2 quizzes and both of them were worth 5% each, right? No big deal, except it dropped my mark. And the thing with grad school is that in your core classes, you have to have a minimum of a B. So I went from a B, which is like a 85, to a B minus, which is an 80. So my mark literally dropped 5% because I missed those 2 little quizzes. Now, God is good and I got 100% on my final paper. So, I passed the class with a B and, praise God, we're all good. Hallelujah. But that's what I'm saying. It's one of those things where like you cannot take for granted any of your assignments. Like you have to stay on top of your schedule, even if you're coming back to it every week, especially when it comes to your extended breaks and stuff like that. When you have your reading weeks, we don't got no school during Christmas break, but when you have your reading weeks, when you have Thanksgiving, when you have Easter, whatever those other things are, you have to plan those assignments and things out well and find days that work really, really well for you. So for me, I hate doing work on Fridays. I don't like having classes on Fridays. So I worked my schedules to make sure that by the latest of 2:30 on a Friday afternoon, I am done with all of my schoolwork. You know what I mean? So you have to find what works for you, because in high school, you don't really get to choose stuff. The only thing is, you get to kind of choose your classes, but it's relatively scattered. But with university, you have a lot more autonomy on what you're going to study and how your schedules are going to work. So like you got to be intentional and make sure that you're not missing assignments. Even if you have to go back to your syllabus and check it again, it's better that you check it again and double check that you have the right date, because like you do not want to be missing assignments.
I'm also gonna point out that it's important. I don't know for any of like your guys' university, but my university has this site called like My Degree, and basically it tells you all the courses that you need and all the courses for your major at least, and all the things you need if you are minoring in something. I think it's very important to pay attention to that and get all those things done immediately. I think for me, I finished all my minors already in my second year, but now I'm just focusing on my majors because that's just how I planned it out. That's how I wanted to do it. And I think it's very important that you know your GPA, what your GPA needs to be for your major and what your GPA needs to be for your minor, to, because you may still pass the class with a good mark, but it's not enough for say graduation, because you could take a lot of courses but have low marks in them, and even though you took in all of those courses, you don't have the GPA for it. You know what I mean? So looking at that and planning those things out is very important. And there are like academic advisors at least at my school. I think they're at every school that will help you get there and will tell you, like, you can literally go to them and they'll tell you what courses to take for that semester if you want. Like, honestly, it's just like a guidance counselor, but better than high school. But yeah, they basically will help you plan out everything and tell you what you need, what you're missing, because before, I think this year, I was just taking all these, I'm in criminology, so I was taking all these crim courses, but I finished all my minors, but I was taking elective crim courses and I didn't need them. So I had to take all my major crim courses. So I think that's important to just remember that you need to kind of figure out what courses to take.
And I'm going to add to that. Not only should you know what your grade needs to, your GPA needs to be for your major or your minor, but be proactive and get to know what GPA that your career wants you to be competitive. In fact, more than competitive, because you don't want to just be at the borderline of competitive where you're still kind of hoping that the school you want chooses you. You want to be at a point where the schools are competing for you to come to their school, so you have your pick of the litter at the end of the day. And that's some advice that I wish that I followed from like my first year at university when I was just playing games, unfortunately. But you live and you learn. Just keep that in mind for sure.
Right, and
if
you want to pursue post-grad or graduate school or professional school, kind of like what Nathan was saying, by your second year, the middle of your second year, if you haven't already, get to know their expectations, you know, what a stellar application looks like for them. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to have to only rely on your grades to get in that. So if that school can curricular activities or whatever the case may be, like get involved, do what you got to do, find out, do your research and find what schools are looking for their ideal or stellar applicant, because your grades can only do so much for you. But if you have to write an essay on yourself, get started on that. You know what I mean? Have someone proofread it, you know, do things of that nature so that when you finish your 4-year degree, you're not just stuck with a degree that you don't know what to do with anymore. You actually have a plan, you know, an idea of how you want to apply that degree with your life.
Yeah, to add on to what Arthur was saying, like your application for once you're finishing or you want to move on to more school. One thing I did was join co-op, where on my breaks or in the summers, I would work at a company and you would get paid, you would get experience, and it would look really good on your resume. And then by working co-op or internships, you can, once you graduate and finish, they could always hire you back on full time. So that's what happened to me. So I really think everyone should try and get into co-op because you gain good experience. And then in the end, you can even get a full-time job afterwards.
I think also, just to add on to that, is that when your school's having those little campaigns or having those like little like booths, shows and all that stuff, go to them, like actually go to them, because they're bringing people there for you to get help. Like they're bringing lawyers there, they're bringing police officers, whatever your job career is, they're bringing that there for you. And they're those pamphlets and all that, pick up all of them and read through them, see what they like, all the opportunities that you can get, because it actually helps. And like for me, I wanted to go to law school, and so this year there was so many opportunities for me to understand how to get there and where to go and what to start off on and what the expectations are from certain universities. And so that's so important. And if I never went to these little, I forgot what you call them, what do you call them, like
a career fair type of
like
thing?
a career fair. Yes.
Career day.
Yeah, those things, career fairs. So my school, at least my school, they're the biggest program on there is criminology. So I'm very fortunate to have a lot of them, at least once a month. And so I got the opportunity to learn so many things just by picking up the pamphlet and reading through them, even in class and everything. And it's very like, it kind of relieves all that stress that you could be going through about like what you want to do next. They literally tell you what you can do next. And if you have a strict job career and everything, and you know you want to do this, there are other options that you can look through, and you need to also make a plan B, because you never know, right? So you want to always keep your options open to a lot of things. So going to those job fairs and career fairs or whatever are so important.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're just going to move on to the next question. How do you pace yourself during the MCAT exam?
During the exam itself, or in terms of studying for it?
I'm going to say both because it's someone else's question.
Okay. Shoot, it's been quite a while since I took the MCAT. In terms of studying for it, let's say you decide to start studying for the MCAT while you're in school. What you want to do is you want to sacrifice as many hours towards studying it as you can without sacrificing the grades for your schooling itself, because both your MCAT grade and your GPA is incredibly important. So if that's only 2 hours a day, maybe that's the case. But after school is finished, that's when you really want to dedicate basically what would be either a high hours part-time job or even a full-time job in terms of studying for it, so that you could really do as well as you can. And that's because getting what the average student would get on the MCAT is not really enough in terms of grades, because that's not competitive. 50%, like right in the middle, is not competitive. You want to be doing towards the top 1 out of 4 or top or higher in terms of students after you take that exam. Otherwise, sometimes it's definitely more difficult for schools to take you seriously without a decent grade on the MCAT, unless it is that that school doesn't actually require the MCAT, which is the case for some schools. But for the MCAT itself, give me a bit and I'll get back to that question because I have to think about that for a bit. It's been a while.
Okay. The next question is a high school question. What are some tips on how to put yourself out there?
I said earlier, clubs, being friends with your teachers, you know, once you're friends with them, like they'll let other teachers know about you because, you know, teachers talk. So once they know about you and like the effort that you put in as a student, then I feel like that's a good way to put yourself out there. And yeah. And also joining like things outside of school as well that can help, like resume, volunteer hours. For example, I'm in this leadership group. Well, I only got through it through teachers at my school. Well, that can kind of relate to being good friends with teachers. I'm in this leadership club that like led me to different opportunities with working with like international students, you know, meeting new people and finding mentors that can help me along my journey now. So I think that would be a good way to get yourself out there. It's also a good way to practice your networking skills as well, because I feel like that's definitely something that you will need in university.
Also signing up for trips, because a lot of high schools, they have random trips and things to do. So like at Bramley, we had something called Bramarama, which was all grades were invited, leadership conference for our school for 4 days in October. And then that opened doors for me to go on, I think like 2 to 3 more leadership conferences where like they were overnight. And just other opportunities. So definitely signing up for random stuff, and like, don't be afraid to join clubs. You know what I mean? Like join, even if you don't join 14, join one, you know, just one group, you know, find something to do while you're there.
Thanks, guys. The next 2 questions are med school questions. The first one is, what is a competitive MCAT score? And the second one is, are there any study habits that are helpful in med school?
Okay, so I think I got the answer for the last question as well, and so I'll just put it all together. A competitive MCAT score, I believe, is about 511. And I think that probably puts you around the 72nd to 75th percentile of students or higher. But as I said before, some schools, I think they tend to be maybe a few US schools, but mostly Caribbean schools don't actually require you to take the MCAT if that's exactly where you want to go. But regardless, I would 100% recommend that you study for and take the MCAT anyways, just because it's going to be even giving you an idea of the amount of information that's going to be required consistently when you actually get into medicine itself. So for the pace for the MCAT that was asked before, so the MCAT is, let's say, a couple hundred multiple choice questions, usually about 5 options. So you're going to want to spend you end up spending about 1.5 minutes per question. So what I recommend, it's not really the time to learn how to pace for the MCAT while you're taking the MCAT. Yes, so it's a good question. You want to take practice exams first of all. And the method that I was taught was to read the last sentence of the question, go back, highlight relevant information, and then use that in answer. And if you feel like you're taking too much time to answer the question properly, then what you want to do, you don't want to spend any more time on it. You mark the question and you're able to go back to that question later after you finish going through everything else that'll go through about as smoothly as possible. And then the last question was study methods. Now, there's a few different ways that you can go. One thing that the school does give you, or that it should give you, is a proper syllabus. My school gave us goals in terms of, the goals had all the things that we needed to know on each particular subject. Well, at least the title of it, and then we have to go and study that information. They also gave us readings that we could do. So we had readings, we had PowerPoints, and then we had other sources. There's so many different sources that you could use to get the information you need. But what I recommend 100% is using the PowerPoints and lectures that the school gives you, using the readings that the school gives you, and making those your foundation. And if you want to use one or two extra resources to supplement that, then that's also a good idea. But if you start trying to use too many sources, you're going to get way too overwhelmed and not going to be able to get through everything that you need to in order to pass and do incredibly well. So some of the things that I did in terms of studying was I used Anki flashcards. That's basically an online flashcard app that lets you do spaced repetition. It's spelled ANKI, and honestly, I recommend it for high school students, university students. I don't know why I didn't know about it until pretty late, but that's one thing that's really useful because you can make your own flashcards, and then it kind of spaces the time out for you. Another thing that's number one, I know some people don't like reading textbooks, but reading textbooks is incredibly crucial, because if you can understand the terminology and understand the concept via the textbook, which is packed and dense with information, then when you actually get to class itself, it ends up being more of a review than learning it for the first time. So when you do study with the textbooks, make sure that you pay attention to the terms that you don't understand and learn those as you go through. And then you can review with the lectures and PowerPoints after all. I remember, I think it was Jada that said to make your own notes in your own particular way, because everybody has their different way of making notes that's most efficient for them. Never be afraid to make adjustments in order to make it more efficient for you. Because sometimes that's necessary, especially if you don't necessarily get a grade that you're looking for in a particular exam. Always be ready to make some changes. But if you have something that works for you, try not to change it too significantly in order for you not to, I guess, mess up something that you already have that's nice. Is that basically it? Yeah, follow the goals given to you by your school, because that's what the exams are going to be based off of. And I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much. The last question is for everyone. You'll see when I ask. The last question is, if you lived abroad or away from home, what was your experience?
I'll go first. So, okay. So like I said in the beginning, I moved with my best friend in my dorm. I lived in a dorm, like it was a guys and girls dorm, like okay, it's so hard. Okay, so you can have the option to be dorms, and you need to make sure, like you need to think about this. You can have the option to have a dorm building with guys and girls, or you can have a dorm room with guys and girls. Like that's a thing. Like my friend was in a room, and her roommate, like the guys in her dorm were just guys and girls, but I had an all girls dorm, but my whole building was guys and girls, so my neighbors were guys and stuff like that. And so it was very different living like that in a small little dorm, and it was a different experience, but I was excited because I wanted to like try new things, live on my own and everything, cook for myself and things like that. I enjoyed that. I had an apartment style dorm, so my school didn't have on my campus, we didn't have like a big cafe and stuff, but we could use our one card, which is like a little card you have to take if you are in a dorm to like get food and all that stuff. So I got to use my one card at Freshco, for example, which was really nice. But moving out, I didn't really get homesick personally. A lot of my friends did get homesick, and it was very hard for them. So they would say go back home every like once a week or something like that. I went home when it was time to go home. Like I went home like when it was like reading week or like Thanksgiving, I would go home like that, stuff like that. It's a lot different living on your own, especially if you don't find yourself to be too independent. I think it's a great experience to learn how to be independent. I think for me, I have been pretty independent, so it's easier for me. But speaking on terms of like my friends' experience and stuff like that, it was very hard for them because they didn't cook for themselves. I had guy friends who had never even done laundry before in their life, so it was just a lot to learn. And you got to experience so many different things. Like I was like, how do you not know to do this? But it's like everyone's different. Everyone grows up in a different home, and so you get to teach people things, and they teach you things. Honestly, I think it is a great experience living. You guys, please. I think it's a great experience to go out there and live on campus and everything. It was a lot easier for classes as I could just take 5 minutes to go walk to class because my dorm wasn't too far. I would literally have a class at 5 o'clock and leave my house at like 4:50, 4:55 and sleep in a lot. So that was a benefit. And it's also nice when you're on campus because everyone around you is doing school. Like everyone is in school. So it kind of like helps you in the sense where it's like you're not in it alone and everyone is studying together. Everyone is just doing the same thing. Whereas now that I'm home, I had to leave my house actually. We popped it. Okay, wait, hold on 1 second. Just give me 1 second. Okay, sorry. And so it's a little hard, being home now and doing school. It's not that easy when you have your family around because they're going to want to spend much time with you. I think when you're at school, you have the time to prioritize your needs and in the sense of being in university because it's a lot of work. And so it's just a lot of pressure, I feel like, when you're at home and you have a lot of things to do and people may not understand that. They won't get that you have a lot of studying to do, so you won't be able to spend as much time with them. You know what I mean? But I think that's where it comes into like conflict because I'll be studying now at home and everyone's just like, oh, you're always studying, you're always doing this, but it's like, kind of have to, like, it's a little different, right? So I think that's just the hard part of not being, of being home while doing school and being on campus. My second year of university, I got out of a dorm and I moved into a house with a few girls. That's what people usually do. It saves you a lot more money than being in a dorm because they keep your money and it's just a lot cheaper. And I was able to find a very nice house with the girls, and it's important that you find a house with people that you like and everything and that you can live with because it gets a little crazy. Bad experience I had in first year was one of my roommates. She didn't like to clean at all, and I and my other roommate would have to clean up after her. And one day we just weren't having it. We're just nice. We're just like, okay, we'll just clean. Like we don't care. Like we just love everything. We just want everything to be clean. So we would clean up after her. And then after, like, you know what? She'll never learn. Like, she'll never learn. So we had to like start leaving her dishes on the side for her to clean. We start putting it in front of her door for her to clean, and then it got a little messy, and then things went left. So it's very important that you, I think when you're in a dorm, that you speak up and you say what your expectations are, I guess, for the house and things like that. I think it's an amazing experience as you meet new people and you learn how to cope with different types of people because everyone is different. And so it's just, I think living on campus is a great experience, and it also could be tough. But I definitely, I don't know, personally, I think everyone should have the experience at least for, even if it's only 6 months, to live by yourself. I definitely think I've grown a lot and matured a lot, and I think it's very, like, I honestly, I would never not tell no one to not live at home. You really, you receive a different type of independence, and when you come back home, I think your parents will start to see that too, and that's really important. So yeah, I said a lot, but yeah.
Honestly, I forgot what the question was, but I know we're talking about living on dorms or something. But for me personally, I never lived on campus. I don't know, like first year, my parents heard the word co-ed dorms and they're like, nope, not living on campus. I don't know why, but so then basically all my years I lived off campus. I lived at an apartment. I had my own like 1-bedroom apartment on my own because I didn't really think I wanted to live with anybody else who would have different habits, maybe different religions. So it wouldn't really work out. Maybe they're not clean. Maybe they like to play music loud at night. But I want to have my own space where I can make my own rules. You know, when I want to go to bed, I'll go to bed. If I don't want to wash the dishes, I won't wash them yet, but I'll wash it later. But living off campus was good. I lived right by campus. It was like a 4-minute walk, so I could get to my classes on time. But the thing about living away on your own is that if you miss your alarm, you miss your alarm. No one's gonna wake you up really. So when you miss that alarm, you miss it. And no one's gonna cook for you. No one's gonna clean for you. So basically you have to do all those things on your own. And I went to school in Windsor, which is about a 3-hour drive from Toronto. So I was able to come home certain weekends after second year when I got my car. I was able to come home certain weekends, you know, say hi to the family, then drive back Monday morning. But first year, I never had a car and I really got homesick around those times. It was the first time going away for like months at a time. And I used to go home maybe, I think once or twice that whole entire semester. So many times I got homesick. But after I got the car, it was easy to go back and forth when I needed to and, you know, say hi to the family and then come back and go back to the grind of school. But yeah, that's basically it.
So I went from living in a different city to living in a different country. My experience with moving away from home was very interesting because my mom and Lori literally packed up their cars, shipped me to Ottawa, dropped me off, and I didn't see them until after Thanksgiving. So my first year was very interesting because like I was the kid. I didn't cry when my parents left. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, I'm fine. You know, you can go now. So I really enjoyed living by myself because it exposed a lot of things that I had relied on my mom to do. Because like, yeah, you know, I'm doing my own laundry. Yeah, I'm washing the dishes at home. And, you know, like if we don't do the dishes fast enough, she yells. But like, it's a lot different when you're not having to maintain a house on top of, or maintain your dorm on top of learning to live with people that you're not related to, on top of staying on top of your classes and taking care of yourself. So that was interesting. I actually also lived in a co-ed dorm, but I only had girl roommates my first year. And then I had the pleasure of living with an Adventist roommate for the rest of my time in Ottawa, which was a lot of fun. I had so much fun. Going from living in a dorm to living in an apartment is completely different because there's certain amenities that you have in a dorm that you do not have in an apartment, you know? So then that there came like, rather than paying for my housing once at the beginning of the semester, now it was paying rent every single month. You know what I mean? Now it was having to go from the 11th floor where we lived to the 20th floor to go do your laundry and things of that nature. And then going from that to moving to the dorm that I just lived in Florida, I then had 5 roommates. I'm telling you guys, it's fun times at my dorm. So like you're learning to live with people. And I think it's a very essential thing to do because like, if you only ever live with the people you're related to, I think there are a lot of things that you miss out on because you need to learn certain things. Like I remember the first time I went grocery shopping, I called my mother frantically because I'm like, excuse me, Mom, why are grapes $2.97 a pound? What is this? I've never seen this before. It's so expensive. What is this? You know what I mean? I'm calling her. I'm like, Mommy, I just spent $60 at the grocery store. She's like, well, welcome to real life. So I think like it's a really important experience to have at that age because like you learn to appreciate your parents a lot more. Because I come home and my mother makes me food and I'm like, God bless you. May your storehouses be full of grace and blessings and all that stuff. Because when you're living in the comfort of your home, you don't realize how good it is until you're gone. So now that I'm 23, I'm about to live, I move in next month to my student apartment. It's like, I've learned how to not just live with, because that's kind of dry, but I've learned how to live with and to get along with people that I'm not related to. I've learned how to maintain my space well because because I'm not home. But even outside of that, there's also the culture shock of not being in a city anymore, because like Brampton is very Black. I went to predominantly Black schools. My classes were very, very Black. I was French immersion, so there were blickety Black. We had other cultures, but the vast majority of the class was Black. I got to Ottawa, and there were 5 Black people in a class of 150. I was like, oh wow, okay, this is different. I went to church, and it wasn't a Caribbean church. That was also a culture shock. You know what I mean? And then I came to Florida. Another culture shock, with America doing things differently. So it's like, you really get to learn about yourself. But I think most importantly, you define your relationship with God when you leave home. Because my mom's not waking me up every Sabbath morning at 7 o'clock. Atarine, wake up. You know what I mean? It's my choice whether I'm going to go to church or not. You know what I mean? It's my choice whether I'm going to continue to either subscribe to the beliefs that I was taught as a child, or if I'm going to veer off and do something else, or if I'm just gonna, abandon it completely. So like my relationship with God got real the moment Lori and my mom dropped me off, because I had to begin to make decisions for myself. So I think, like Jada was saying, it's a gratifying experience. And I think it's also a necessary experience, even if you're not able to do it in university, because it is expensive. At some point, you need to be living by yourself. Just get into the habit of providing for yourself, being responsible, having to do things on your own without the comfort of your parents. I think is really, really important, because it teaches you a lot of things that you didn't realize you didn't know.
Yeah, there are definitely benefits and downsides to living with other people, I realize, because I've been boarding since I went to Kingsway, because I was in Kingsway for grade 11 and 12. So first I was in a different city, then I went to Alberta. I was there for 4 years, so I was in a different province, and now I'm all the way in Antigua, which is like a completely different country, completely different vibe. In all of those different situations, there are times where I had roommates. Some roommates I got along with great, fantastic. We had a great time. Other roommates, yeah, some roommates we didn't talk, for the whole year. And it was not that we hated each other. It's just sometimes you just don't vibe with people on a certain level, but you still have to learn how to be able to like communicate and deal with people civilly, regardless if you might have disagreements or whatnot. I think, as it was stated before, you have to be able to speak your mind when there's things that you're not comfortable with, or things that you'd like to change that's affecting both of you. Um, but my experience in Antigua right now has been great. Because yeah, I had my own place when I was out there, and it's different because even when you have another roommate, you still somewhat have split responsibilities. That you're able to share certain things with people, especially if it's someone that's close to your culture. Maybe cooking is something that one person can do on one day, and then you both benefit if you split it back and forth. Now, when you're completely by yourself, all those responsibilities are your best friends, because if those responsibilities aren't your best friend, then they're your worst enemy. You don't want to be living in shambles. You don't want a hungry belly all the time. So you have to take care of what you have to take care of in order to actually survive and enjoy yourself, and enjoy having your own space, enjoy going through the whole process that is, getting your education and going through life. Also, you get to learn that after you get past the responsibilities part, you get to like, all right, I can do this and this to make my place even nicer, so I could more so enjoy it, so I can enjoy having people over, I could have fun here and there. So yeah, there's definitely benefits and downsides. I definitely learned to prefer living on my own, so I definitely can't wait till I have my own place after school is done, but it's another story. But yeah, that was my experience when I was gone.
I wanted to add on that another thing that you learn while living off or away from home is money management. Like Authorine was saying, like with going to the grocery store and
With the
everything and
grapes.
buying everything. I know, same. Like I was saying, I was in an apartment style dorm, and then I moved into a house with a few girls, and I had to cook for myself since first year. Like I didn't have a cafeteria where I could go to and just like swipe and get something to eat. So I had to start from scratch. And so I would meal prep So I learned how to just meal prep for the whole week because I'm like, I can't be cooking every day. I can't be doing all this stuff while having school. So I would meal prep and I would cook my whole dinner for the week and put them in like little containers. And then I would have like salad or something for lunch, and then breakfast you can pick up a bagel or something. But I learned so much about money management, and even in my second year, I wanted to live in a house, and I wasn't gonna live in the dorm, and I was like, I really want to do it, and it was expensive, so I decided, I'm like, okay, so I'll pay for it. So I decided to get a full-time job in the summer, and I worked hard enough to like start paying rent for myself, you know what I mean? So I learned how to do that, and I learned about landlords and all these agreements and everything, all this stuff about money just in general to myself. And it's not as bad as the world puts it, or it's not as bad as people may think it is. It's really not. And well, it was only a dorm, it's only rent, so it's not a mortgage, but it's it's still something. Like you still learn so much about it. And I think that's really important too. So it's like, it's a big jump. You learn so much. You learn so much about yourself, how to deal with people, plus money management and how you would want to live. And like Nathan was saying, I would love to live by myself now. I'm so used to it. I would love to just be on my own and things like that. And also when you're away for so long, you develop a relationship with your friends and family, like that are back home. Like you develop a relationship with like just talking to them on the phone, talking to them online and stuff. So it's a little different for when you have to go back. Like a lot of things change. Like coming back for Thanksgiving and everything, it's not the same. Like it's not the same. Like it's very different. So if you are a homebody and you love home, and you are going to campus, just don't love it too much, because when you do go, it's going to be hard to come back. It's very different, and it's a whole different setting because you do everything to yourself, but then you have to go back home, and then you have to tell someone you're leaving the house again. You can't just walk out. You have to say, oh yeah, I'm going this place. Like, you know what I mean? It's a lot different. So yeah.
Thanks, guys. I'm just gonna quickly open up the floor if anyone had any questions. I'll give you guys 30 seconds to answer whether or not you have any questions.
Can I offer a piece of advice to like parents with high school students or just in general?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say one thing is to prepare your children to be on their own, even if it's not at the age of 18, because some kids have an abrupt wake-up call when they're in a dorm, because they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I had to do all of these things on my own now. Kind of like how Jada was talking about her neighbors not knowing how to do their own laundry. So I think certain things of, how to cook, how to not just how to cook, but how to meal prep, money management, how to budget, different things like that. Those are also really essential conversations to be having with your students, because it's like, regardless of what age you're at, money management is really important. You got to learn how to handle your responsibilities and things of that nature. So I think it's really, really important that, as parents, as mentors in the church, whatever the case may be, just start to ask your students questions. What are your ideas or thoughts on da 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 da? Because if you're not smart, you'll blow $100 on groceries and then it'll be done in 2 weeks, and then you're gonna have to go back. Or you can use your money wisely, spend $50 for groceries, and it lasts you 3 weeks. So that's something to also really consider.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely that as well. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'll
Just finish your thought, Josh.
All right, I was basically gonna say similar stuff as Arthurine, but once you're thinking of going to university or college, just start preparing yourself, because once you start, I remember starting, and then I was living off campus and renting an apartment, and all of a sudden I had to start paying all these different bills, like the hydro, the rent, and then also you have to focus on getting groceries. So I never, like Arthur was saying, I never knew how expensive groceries were until I actually started buying like all of them on my own. And I remember starting of thinking of ways I could save. So there was a grocery store nearby that gave discounts to students on Tuesdays. So I'd always go grocery shopping on Tuesdays. So it's just finding different ways to manage your money and to save money and just make sure you have enough to get the things that you need.
Yeah, like I was going off of Josh and Authorine, I was just gonna give an advice that I kind of brought up earlier about grocery shopping in general. Like meal prepping helped me a lot. Like I would only spend like, okay, sometimes, okay, first year I was very strict, but second year I got a job. So I was being nice to myself. Okay, but first year I would spend like roughly, I try to stay in like the 50 to 60 bucks, right? And I would always buy foods that I know I could have at least for 2 weeks. And that's very cheap if you think about it. Like 2 weeks for just 50 bucks, like it is cheap. It may seem like expensive to someone and not expensive to someone, but I would be like, okay, I'll get like 2 breads and freeze one. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like for breakfast, I would always have like bagels or something. Like that's cheap. And it's important to establish your budgets for a lot of things and how, like what you want to spend on like restaurant food or whatever, like if you're going out with your friends or if you want to buy your school gear, all that stuff, like, and your books are important, but it's important to budget what you want to spend and how much you want to spend that throughout the semester or throughout the school year. And so I remember in grade 12, like going into first year, I was in the summer just always planning out what I wanted to do or what I wanted to spend and how I was going to meal prep. And that saved me so much money, like so much money. And that wasn't even my money. That was the money that I even got on the card. I was saving that the school like gives, like it's a part of your tuition. But this like the one card, I had money going into the next year just because I was saving it, using it wisely. So things like that, it's very important. And so yeah, talk to your parents about everything, literally. Like grocery shopping is expensive, and you don't need as much food that you think you do need. You don't need a whole pound of grapes because they're expensive. You don't need like all that stuff. So just be mindful. It's just only you yourself. So yeah.
I would say like go within your appetite too, because you have to look at yourself and what you eat. Like
What
me,
you actually
like,
eat.
What you actually eat, yes.
Yeah.
Because for me, like I know I can like eat, like depending on the season, I can eat a lot. But if it's not like another season, then yeah, I think I just plan around that, honestly.
Oh, also 15 is a real thing. So be mindful of that. And it's not just from eating, it's from stress too. So don't just eat. Like when I'm at school, I'm telling you, I'm not hungry and I just eat. I'll have breakfast and then I'm hungry. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like just because I'm home, just because I'm there, I want to eat. But you just want to eat all the time. Like you'll just be walking on campus and you're hungry. So don't do it. Just drink some water, have your meal, drink some water throughout the day. But you'll catch yourself just always just like, oh, your friends like, oh, let's go eat. You don't have to go out all the time to eat. If you have food at home, eat the food at home. Do not go to restaurants every week. Don't do it. Don't, like, it's not worth it. Like, it's not, even if your little one card or your card allows you to go to certain restaurants, don't do it. Don't do it. You'll find yourself just piling up on a lot of money that you could have saved. So yeah. I didn't gain 50 pounds, by the way. I'm just saying.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Nobody seems to have any other questions. So thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you for being here having the discussion. It was really, really good. I know I learned a lot. I know some other people have learned a lot as well. Some parents have also learned a good amount as well. So I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will close with prayer by Hannah.
Okay, bow your heads and mute your mics, I guess. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for your Sabbath day that you have given to us once again after a long week, dear God. We just want to give you all the thanks and the praise. And we just want to thank you for this very informative session where we have learned different educational pathways and what we can do to be successful in them. I pray that what we've learned from this session we may use in our actual lives, and that you may be in the midst of all our plans, and that you may help us to trust in you in everything that we do. In your precious name I pray, amen.